What's going on, everybody? What is going on? I'm here. I'm in the house. James Hollingsworth, your host of the Working People's Podcast, coming to you live. Oh, excuse me. The Working People's Podcast, where everybody desires to build generational wealth and a financial legacy for their families. Come through. If you do come through while we're live here, come through and drop some hearts and some likes on the video. Share it with your friends because we're about to get into it. And once again, it might get a little sticky, but we're going to talk about money and modesty. There is power in modesty. We've lost sight of that. Just facts. We've totally lost sight of that. My mother was the smartest woman that I knew. She was smart. However, one quick thing before we really dive deep into it. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're getting any value out of some of the content or the content that we're producing and creating here, and everything that we're doing is live. So if we make a mistake, we got to fix it on the fly. But if you come through, ring the the notification bell. And also, if you're coming through on Facebook, if you would do the same, press the like button, drop some comments below. Let's dialogue for a little bit. I don't know if anybody's in the house yet. Let me see. Yeah. So let's get into it. Money and modesty. We know that immodesty sells. We know that the more you show, the more the money flow. Am I lying? That's how it is. However, I want to talk about something and the correlation between, I would say, money and modesty, something that perhaps we're overlooking. So I want to get your thoughts and your opinions about what I'm about to say, because I'm going to say a couple things that's going to be extremely controversial. I believe that we've let go of some of the old ways and the things that used to work. And you've heard me say it a lot here about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I want to show you something real quick. Let me share my screen. Where we at? Right here. Share. We're going to share screen. Yep, that one right there. Boom. Loading. Show my screen. Yay. The Working People's Podcast 2023. Oh my goodness. Let me move that out the way. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. You've heard this saying before. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. It comes from an author, G. Michael Hoff. I hope I'm saying his name correct. But he's the one that created that saying in one of his novels. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And I believe that's exactly where we are right now. We're in weak times. No, we're in hard times because weak men have created them. And I'm going to say something right off rip. I've listened to some things that Dr. Umar has said, and by no means do I feel like I'm capable of bringing criticism to anybody. So don't take it that way, right? But I will say this. I've heard him talk about the disenfranchisement of black people and African American people and how we are kept out of wealth and all things like that. And I have to give a little pushback on that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's not like we don't have the financial resources to build wealth, right? And it's not like, and I know some people will disagree that there's this big plan or this big strategy to keep us out of wealth and certain things that build wealth. But if we're not buying homes and we're not investing our money, I've shared it with you all many times on this particular show and podcast, that right now in America, black people, we're number 3 in buying power in America. You have white people, Hispanic or Latina people, and then black people. We're number 3 in buying power. And last year, I want to say it was $1.6 trillion of buying power that we have in America. And it continues to grow. So if we're not building wealth, at what point do we take some level of accountability to say, what are we doing with our money? And I can show you and tell you since 1954, which I've encouraged many people to watch that documentary that you can see on YouTube for free, The Secret to Selling the Negro, that was produced in 1954. We have consistently, since 1954, spent our money on the same things that haven't brought any wealth or value to our community and neighborhoods. And most of that is on hair products. And if you watch that documentary, you will see that none of our buying habits have really changed since 1954, since that time. So if we're not building wealth, I have to give a little pushback and say that I can't buy into the whole thing about disenfranchisement and racism and those things keeping us out of being able to do that, right? That's just my opinion about it. I've also heard on some other people, and I hate to throw names out there because, like I say, I don't feel like I'm in no way, suitable or worthy to be trying to even say anything to be critical of somebody, especially, the one thing that people will say is, well, they're successful. And how can you got a little small podcast. Don't nobody know you. What gives you the right to criticize or say anything that can be seen as negative against that person or that person? I'm just giving just my little, commentary to say, have you thought about this, right? So another, frame of mind that comes to me when it comes to us building our families, a lot of people will say, well, it's the men. All of you guys is all your fault. And that's why I want to talk about money and modesty, because I want to give you just something to think about as it relates to this whole idea of, truly, I do believe that men, we hold some level of responsibility and accountability, right, in terms of where our families are. But at the same time, I want to give you something to think about that can maybe perhaps cause your mind to formulate some other ideals. And maybe perhaps we can begin to mend some of the brokenness that we have in our families and in our communities. And maybe we can begin to bring about a level of healing that we haven't experienced and had before. Because truly indeed, I believe that we are in hard times that has been created by weak, not just men, but weak people, right? We've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. The things that we used to hold as valuable and dear and beneficial and profitable, those things, we've just thrown it away, right? Because ultimately, in the pursuit of having more resources to buy more stuff, right, we got rid of the things that really mattered, that was truly something that was a foundation and platform to build wealth, right? So we threw the baby out with the bathwater. We got rid of trying to do something new. We got rid of the things that were traditional mindsets, traditional mentality, traditional habits that we had. And now we just said, well, those things, they were no good. They didn't work. And I'll give you an example of a couple of them. For example, now we have the whole future and what's his name? What is his name? You know who I'm talking about. The one that has all these children and all these babies by these women. The actor. Why can't I think of his name? Somebody could probably think of his name. But we got this whole thing now in our community in particular, and it's just not in our community. It's rampant, all over in the United States with, children being born and men having multiple children by different women, right? The whole baby daddy, baby mama syndrome. And it's pretty prevalent. But there was a time when if you got a woman pregnant, they stood your little narrow, slanky Yankee tail butt up there at the altar, and the daddy and the uncles and brothers stood there with shotguns and forced you to marry that woman that you had got pregnant. Now, many of y'all may not remember those times in those days. They call them shotgun weddings. There was a time when that was not just a saying, but it actually happened. If you got a woman pregnant, they went and found your butt and brought you to the church and got the preacher, and they stood you up there and you married her. You were forced to do it. And I guarantee you, if those days had never left and those days were still here right now, and we would still had to do that, you wouldn't be out here just slinging your seed everywhere and just being indiscriminate with, I'm just saying. It wouldn't happen. Because if you knew that you had to absolutely, unequivocally, if you knew you absolutely had to marry the woman that you impregnated, you would give it not just a second thought, you'd give it a 15th thought. And I guarantee you, you'd be real careful about who you laid down with. But those days are over. We don't have that anymore. Because what is more profitable and what brings in more money is not modesty. It's not doing the right thing. It's not taking care of children. That's not what's producing more money. It's the complete opposite. As well as, here we go. As well as the thing that our young women, it used to be a prize, and it used to be the one thing that women knew, and it's modesty, their virtue that was valued. If we still held that same level of value on modesty and on virtue, right, we would be getting different outcomes for our young ladies right now as it relates to building families and community and all those things again. And once again, I need to say up front, before anybody jump into it and start talking about, being barefoot and pregnant and being in the kitchen and all that stuff, that's not what we're even talking about. We're talking about valuing the one thing, or one of the things, that as a young lady that God gave you, that you were created with, that has so much value, and it starts in your heart and in your mind about who you believe and feel and know yourself to be. Do I still have this little saying up? I should have kept this saying. What did I do with that? Do I still have that? I think I closed that window out. I should have kept that window, because that was something good. Do I still have that? Nope. Man, I should have kept that. That was a good one. Let me see if I can find it real quick. If not, I can kind of quote it, because I remember finding a little saying. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because I want to read it as it said it. Images. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, man. Well, I tell you, it says something along the lines of this, because I can't find it anymore. And I'm going to really probably mess it up. But it was along the lines of that modesty for women is not hiding themselves from men, hiding their bodies from men, but modesty is actually revealing their dignity to men. Right? That's the gist of what it said. That modesty is not hiding your body from men, but modesty is revealing your dignity to them. Right? And there used to be a time when we valued modesty, when we valued, when we taught our young women to value their bodies and who they were, and modesty. and that they found value in that, right? And now basically we've told them to find value in using their bodies to generate money, through various social media platforms, or becoming, just to use their bodies and to devalue themselves for the sake of what? Financial gain or popularity, or for attention, or whatever the case may be. And ultimately, there's profit in that. There's money to be made in over sexualizing. God, I hope I don't get, this video banned for saying that word. Our women to the place where they're trying to gain value in other ways rather than seeing that there's value in their modesty. Because there's money to be made. And there's greed when we don't have that. And there's a lot of money to be made. So now what happens? What happens? Now we got this environment where our families are broken, where, as I could say, as a black man, where we're not creating wealth, right? And we're not having any type of a sustainable financial growth that we can leave for our children, because we're not building families, and we're not building. I've given you the statistic many, many, many times, and it consistently shows that the majority of millionaires are married. That the best way to build wealth is through the structure and the foundation of family. And we've seen to have lost how important that is to do that. So hard times create strong men. Strong men or strong people create good times. The thought behind that is, let me pull up this. Yeah, here it is. Let me show you this. Do I need to make this bigger? I think I can make that bigger. There we go. Make this a little bigger. The thought behind the whole idea of that is, this proverb, hard times make strong men, suggests that people who go through difficult experiences become stronger and more resilient as a result. So there was a time, for us as black people, that we went through some hard times. But as a result of that, we had stronger families. And I know some people will push back on that and say, well, that's not the case. Well, you could look at the data, and it shows you that prior to 1965, 1960, prior to 1965, we were 80% married. We had stronger communities. We had family values. And we were still dealing with difficult times. So in the midst of segregation and this blatant racism that we keep complaining about and different things like that, Jim Crow laws, not having as in 1965 when the right to the Civil Rights Act was put into place. Prior to all of that, we had stronger families, right? That's why I want you to watch the documentary from 1954. But this idea of that quote suggests that people who go through difficult experience, they become stronger and more resilient as a result. But now, what has happened? The complete opposite. Now, we're living in hard times. Unwed pregnancies, fatherless homes. However you want to narrate it and say who's the reason and the fault behind it, right? And we can give some narration on that. We're high divorce rates. And my sister, I love my sister, she sent me a video about this guy once again. He was on TikTok, and he was talking about how men are to blame for fatherless homes. Now, we got data and statistics over the last 40, 50, 55 years that shows us that many of the things that we believed about, the whole mass incarceration of black men and all of that stuff, we have enough data and statistics to show now that many of that stuff wasn't true. It was just propaganda that was put on us to get us to believe, the whole deadbeat syndrome was a narrative that was placed on black men. And we see that many of those things that we believe to be true is not true. What we have is Nick Cannon. That's the name I couldn't think of before. Nick Cannon and the whole future. We have this phenomenon that's in our communities now. And if, like I say, if we went back to the old ways of saying, wait a minute, if you get a woman pregnant, that's your wife. We would end that. It would be done with and over with. It would be, but no, we'll have people saying, well, that don't make a strong, that don't make, that ain't gonna mean that, this, that, okay. But I guarantee you, if a man knew that he was going to be forced to have to marry a woman that he impregnated and he hadn't married her before he did that, if he knew that was going to be his consequence, I guarantee you that men wouldn't do what they do. You heard me say about the whole thing, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That was an old thing that used to be. It used to happen. It used to be true. It used to be, that's how it was in our communities. That phrase came from the earliest known, time that we have of a phrase that symbolizes this whole idea of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, came from like 1512. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's an idiomatic expression for an avoidable error in which something that is good is eliminated when trying to get rid of something that is bad. And that's kind of where the whole ideal and the thought came from. But that's how it used to be. Let me give you something else where it used to be. Y'all ain't gonna like me, and it's gonna sound real crazy when I say this. What if they, prior to 1970, that little window in 1965 to 1970, black folks, you wasn't getting no welfare. You wasn't getting no welfare. You wasn't included in that. If you go back to the Great Depression in the late 20s and the early 30s, right, 1920s and early 1930s, you go back in the Great Depression time when Roosevelt came up with the women's pensions, that wasn't for you. The women's pensions was aid, financial aid to women who perhaps didn't have a husband or there was no father in the home. But that wasn't for you, folk, black folk. So what if we went back to the time when you couldn't get no welfare? The days, I know, Jesus, they're going to cancel me for this one. The time of segregation and, difficult hardship times like that. And you couldn't get any welfare before no-fault divorce, before child support. What if we go back to those days where you knew that if you had a child, there was going to be nobody coming from the state to save you and rescue you and provide financial assistance to you, where you had to depend on your family for support and help? What if we went back to those days and said no black people can get any type of financial assistance from the state, no welfare? It would stop a lot of these problems that we have. So I know everybody says, well, what about, because we had stronger families and you knew that if you went out there and did certain things, there were consequences. And that's what we don't have anymore. We literally rescue people from their bad decisions and bad behavior and poor choices. And there was a time when there was consequences to the decisions that we made. And what we have done now, we have devalued modesty. We're living in a time of loose immorality, and we have devalued modesty so much for our women that now we have made it normal. There was a time when this whole idea of my body, my choice, I know y'all gonna hate me for this. Y'all gonna hate me for this. But what if the times existed again? And you can say it's a healthcare choice. I'm not even debating any of that. But I'm saying that many of our people are using certain things like birth control. And there was a time, prior to 1970, 1971, when it wasn't legalized. We had consequences to the decisions and choices that we made. And that's not a bad thing. Where immorality was shamed. And now it's like, oh, you should be able to do what you want to do. And for people that say that they are Christians and believers and that they go to church, and there's people that go to church faithfully, singing on praise teams and in choirs and jumping up and down and shouting and dancing and singing and doing all of this stuff in church and saying how much they love the Lord. But most of us, many of us, let me say that, our decisions and choices don't line up with living a biblical life. And that's just the truth. And you can go to church now and church look like the club. My mother for years, I know it's going to be light, but I'm not saying that you still got to go back to the days when you were in skirts and dresses below your ankles. And there was a time when they used a Bible. They actually used a Bible to measure your skirt and the distance of your skirt to the floor. And it had to meet the Bible test. That joker had to come down to the Bible. There was a time when my mother, for years, she never wore pants because she believed from growing up that a woman shouldn't wear pants. But I'm telling you, we had stronger families and stronger, and I know a lot of people was doing stuff in the dark, doing things behind the scenes in secret, but with all of that, whether it's done in secret or done out in the open, you know what it actually still comes down to? It comes down to the condition and the state of your heart. Modesty is not necessarily about what you wear. It's about your heart. It's about your mindset. It's about how you value yourself. It's about the value that you place on yourself and seeing your body and your modesty as something that is valuable, that is precious, that should be preserved. But now it's like you can give it away to anybody because all of that stuff from the 60s and the 70s, listen to me, people, my people, melanin skin people, black people, all of this stuff that we picked up and we took the reins and said, this is our fight. It wasn't our fight. It wasn't your fight. It wasn't your fight. And what have we gained as a result? When black people were at the lowest when it comes to family, marriage, wealth, but we're at the top when it comes to divorces, unwed pregnancies, fatherless homes. We're at the top of that. So has any of this stuff that we've taken up as our fight, for freedom and liberation, has any of that helped us as families and communities? Has any of that helped us? And you could say, well, there was a time when, men was just abusing women and they was just mistreating them and no. For years, we've had a matriarchal community. For years. And if there's one group of people that has always pedestalized and lifted their women up, it's us that have called our women queens and pedestalized our women. We were taught that. I was taught that by my mother and the women, my grandmother, and the women in my life. My earliest mentor, Sister IQ Nevels. So we were taught to pedestalize our women. But it's difficult to protect and really cover our women when our women have bought into the lie that you can live your life in the freedom of immorality and immodesty, and you can have this all the sexual freedom that you want, and that you can devalue modesty and devalue your body and who you're that you should have the right to have freedom of sexual, to have sex with as many people. God, they're going to probably kick me off YouTube and Facebook for saying the sex word. That you can do that with as many people as you want to, because you got the freedom. It's your body. It's your choice. You can slang it. You can take your socks off any way you want to. You can have as many children as you want to, because the state's going to give you financial support and aid. You could do all of this stuff. And there was a time when we didn't have that as a fallback plan. And if we believe and can continue to believe that that's our right to do that, God bless you. Do what you want to do, because you're grown. Continue to teach that to your children. Let's continue to teach our young girls that it's okay to over-sexualize themselves when they're young. Let's keep teaching that kind of foolishness, because we see now the outcomes that it has given us over the last 50 years. And you can say, well, James, you're old-fashioned. Absolutely, because some of the stuff that we used to do, it worked. But we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, and we have no value anymore on modesty. And I've said it over and over and over again, that if we're going to build wealth as a community, we got to get back to families, to building families, because it's not going to happen otherwise. And for anybody who doubts or has pushback on anything that I've said during this presentation, tell me what group and race and ethnic and orientation or whatever of people is at the bottom of the financial ladder in terms of earnings and resources. Who's at the bottom? I'll wait. I probably get banned for that, because of like that. You just put some copyrighted music on your platform. It's black women. Unfortunately, in the large sense of the word, you've suffered the most. And it's distressing and heartbreaking to see it happening and unfolding every day. Every day. It is disheartening to see it. Oh, but black women are doing this. They making money. They bosses, and they doing this. In large, the statistics are there. You don't have to believe me. The data is there. By and large, still at the bottom of earnings, the bottom of wealth, the bottom of financial stability and security, at the bottom is our queens. black women at the bottom. And the days are coming, and they already are here, when so many of our children are being raised in poverty, are being raised in financial situations. And there's another fella out there, I might as well go and say his name, Anton Daniels. He's told you he don't think poor people should be having children at all. He's told you that. But maybe many of y'all are not aware of the brother who was on the Phil, what's his name, Dr. Phil show, with another whole other panel of guests. And he makes no excuses about it. He's not like he's hiding it. He says it. He's said it multiple times, and he said it publicly. Poor people should not be having children. He has said that, Anton Daniels. Power to the brother. So I'm not saying that to try to throw no shade against the brother, but he has said that. And, you know, another good brother, do I want to say their names? Well, I might as well, since I'm throwing names out there. But they had a show together, you know. Good brother. He talks a lot about rebuilding the consciousness of women, R.C. Blakes, but he was on the show with Anthony O'Neill, and they talked about, hey, men, it's your fault. The reason why our women are out here with broken consciousness is your fault. Now, whatever school of thought you have behind it, the truth still is, the reality is, in every statistical data that shows across the board of who is at the bottom of wealth, financial stability, financial security, earnings, resources, at the bottom is our queens. And if you still don't believe that there's a correlation between how we treat modesty and how we value modesty, that we still teach our young ladies in their 20s to go out and, you know, explore themselves, that if you don't see the connection between all of these things and why we are at the bottom in terms of our ability to build wealth as a community, then you're going to stay blind. And we're going to continue to make excuses, and we're going to continue for nobody's going to take any level of accountability. But welfare has hurt our families. Welfare has hurt our communities. I grew up on it, but the more I learn and grow as a person, as a man, I see how detrimental it was to our families and to our communities. It has hurt us. And the whole sexual revolution and the whole immorality and the immodesty that we continue to teach our young women as they're growing up. I've said it 1,000 times. The greatest gift that we can give our young men growing up is to discover their purpose. But the greatest gift that we can give our young women is to be wives. Does that mean that everybody's going to get married? No. But I'm talking about the valuing of who they are as a person, teaching them that. That's what I'm talking about. And there's nothing wrong with continuing to teach them to get an education and a college degree and to go out into the workforce and to understand how important it is to learn how to care for themselves and all of those things. Those things are important as well. But the biggest decision, I believe, that outside of, and I am a Christian, if you want to call me a Christian, whatever. I believe in Jesus Christ. I don't even know if I can say all of that. I believe in that, right? So I believe in that, and I believe that is the biggest choice that we can ever make in our lifestyle, in our life rather, and that is to serve the Lord, you know, the Creator. I'm like, some of these things, I'm like, I don't know if they gonna be like, flag, flag, flag. You can't say that. You can't say the JESUS. You can't say that. I don't know. I believe that's the number one, the biggest decision. But I believe behind that, the biggest decision that as a young lady that they will ever make is who they will partner with in covenant relationship marriage. And if we don't teach them how to get that decision right and show them the characteristics, show them what a husband looks like, what is the template of the type of man that they should marry, because there was a time when we protected our young women and we helped them to make that decision, but those days are gone. So now they're out here left to themselves to have to make that huge choice and decision on who they're going to couple with. And now it seems like it's so like such a loose decision. Like it used to be an important decision to decide what man are you going to give the greatest gift that a woman can give a man, and that's a child. And now it's so indiscriminate. But we used to value that. And that is the biggest decision that our women have to make. Who are you going to allow to father your child? And men, who are you going to implant your seed of conception in? These things need to be valued. And now it's like we've lost that level of value. And so now to teach modesty to our young girls is shameful. It's not teaching them how to be independent and to live their life and to be free. Now to teach modesty it's shamed to do that. It's seen as something that is debilitating to their growth and their future, learning who they are, to teach modesty. But yet, we don't see that there's a connection between money and modesty. Number one, because the world, the people that we send our children out there to devour them, values the fact that the least amount of modesty that they have is more money for them to make and capitalize off of at the expense of our young children and our young girls growing up. But then at the same time, corollary to that, we don't see the connection of money and modesty. The fact is that the more modest that you are, oh, y'all ain't gonna like this, that's where the traditional family values come into play. That is what we need to teach our children. That is what builds family. That's the foundation of building wholesome, productive families, and the connection that we often overlook between building strong families and building wealth, because we don't see the connection anymore. We don't even see that there is scientific proof, because we'll say you need to have some level of experience in that, because how are you gonna know what you're gonna like and what you don't like and all that stuff? And we don't see that the most successful opportunity is not more partners, but less. That's what creates a better pairing situation. And many people will push back and fight against that. Cool. But answer me this. Since 1970, have we been getting the same level of outcomes? How's all of this lack of modesty and sleeping around with whoever you want to and being able to do whatever you want to, how's that been working out for us? Or are we going to continue to blame the other folk, the reason why we disenfranchised? How long are we going to keep, throwing that card down on the table? Or are we going to take some level of accountability to say the reason why we're in this mess It's because we chose to throw the baby out with the bathwater, get rid of traditional family values, get rid of traditional gender roles, and say that's none of that stuff matters anymore. And now our money is equaling our level of modesty. We got little modesty and we got little money. And the more immodesty that we have, the more lack of money that we have, and the lack of building wealth in our families, and lack of building wealth in our communities, and lack of building wealth that we can pass from generation to generation and leave to our children. Because if you don't, and the Bible says it, you believe in the Bible, you're a Christian, right? He says where people, they have no vision, they lack vision. It says they cast off restraints. They perish. But if we don't see the correlation, and we don't think that there's no correlation between the two, the less modesty that we have, the more immorality that we have, the less financial stability as a people that we have. And I'm at A. Do you, boo? Do you? If it's working for you, God bless you. But for the most of us, statistical data shows that for the majority of us, it's not working. And it hasn't worked. And it's not getting us the outcomes of building anything that we can really leave and pass to our children other than some more garbage. And over again. And over and over and over again, we keep believing the same lies. That the reason why we here in this place of hard times is because it's somebody else's fault. And the more we don't take accountability for where we are and what has financially happened to us as a people and the reason why our homes and families are broken, the more we don't take accountability for it, keep living it and passing this mindset to our children and to our grandchildren, our children's children. It's going to continue to create hard times because overall we become weak people. Because we rather join the crowd and say, go ahead, make an OnlyFans page. Go ahead and show your body. Go ahead and sleep around. Go ahead and tell our young girls to have as many partners as you want to. Go ahead and continue to do that. Because somebody's going to want you later. Go ahead and have as many children as you want to have. Somebody's going to still value and want you. Let's keep telling them to do this and think we're going to get some different results. It's absolute insanity. Because it's easier to follow that mindset and just blend in with the whole ideology of today's culture rather than to stand up and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with traditional family values because it worked. We had better results then than we have right now. And if you don't see the correlation between where our financial situation is and our money and lack thereof, with the level of immorality and the lack of modesty that we have in this culture and society today, if you can't see it, you're in blatant denial. And you can say all you want to that things have gotten better since we threw the baby out with the bathwater, that we tried in the sake of trying to get rid of the things that were bad, we just threw everything out. It has not worked. It has not gotten us outcomes that we wanted. I'm so glad that I did this video. At first, I really debated if I should do this. I said, man, James folk ain't gonna like you for saying that. They're gonna give you a lot of pushback. They're gonna say you don't know what you're talking about. They're gonna say our girls need to be able to live their life and have fun and go to college and sleep around and have 37 boyfriends and 27 partners and It's just teaching them what they really want, and what they need is teaching them to really learn themselves. Why didn't you, mama and daddy, parents or whatever, why didn't you teach her that, to know who she was when she was 12 and 14 and 15? Whether try to go out here and sleep around with men that she don't really know, haven't really built the knowledge of really knowing them and who they were and what kind of character they have, rather than telling her how important that is, right? And some people may say, well, why are you putting so much responsibility on the women? Because nobody can get to your things unless you give them access. God has given you a power to hold your modesty as valuable, to see yourself as somebody who has value based on your modesty, not based on how many people you can seduce and give yourself to. It has to be important, because what man of character? We're talking about men of character now. Let's talk about men of character. Let's not talk about them jokers, that Anthony O'Neill and R.C. Blakes was talking about. Those guys that's go indiscriminately out here just, let's not talk about the Nick Cannons and the Futures and the people that's going around here having multiple children by multiple. Let's not talk about them for a minute. Let's talk about that other group of men that do have character. Because we never seem to talk about those men. What man of character, who has a plan, who really is trying to grow and build wealth that he can pass to his legacy and posterity? Now, some of y'all will say, well, they marrying 304s. That's the kind of women they want. They want the 304s. They want the thoughts. They want the, they... Look, if you want your teenage children to go to high school and be able to pull up your Instagram page or buy access to your, OnlyFans page, and for their peers and other teenage young boys in high school to see all of your things being spread across social media platforms, because perhaps that's just what you feel like you can do, fine. Do you? You grown, right? And if you think that a man of value, a man who is really trying to build a legacy and do something, you have to be able to teach values. Women, you are the first teachers of culture and value to our children. You're the ones that nurture them in their most vulnerable stage of life. And if you think that a man who's really trying to build the type of legacy that can be passed from generation to generation, if you truly think those men, by and large, are out here marrying 304s to build that type of legacy with, you are delusional. What's wrong with teaching our young women to value their modesty and to guard their hearts from being hurt and abused and broken by indiscriminately just being with people that they don't, in the most intimate way, with people that they don't really even know like that? And now they end up broken and hurt and trying to raise children with every statistical disadvantage against them in a culture where they're already at the bottom. And now they're trying to fight through all of that stuff, every statistical disadvantage, to raise their children. Why are we continue to put our people in that type of situation and then blame other people and saying they're being disenfranchised and doing this against them. We need to start taking some level of accountability. And as much as it is not popular to say, there is value in a traditional mindset about family and raising children. And as much as you got data to support that, you also got a whole lot of data in 2023 to support that the way we trying to do it now is not working. And it's not producing financial stability for our families and children, and it's not producing the type of financial legacy that we can pass to them and to our unborn seed, to our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. I got to go because I already know there's going to be a whole lot of folk that listen to this if they watch it in its entirety, and they're going to disagree and say that the way we doing things now is working. It's working. All right. Well, show me the data and the statistics where it's working, because I guarantee you it ain't none. If you've been watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed this live presentation. Press the thumbs up like button. Drop some comments below. Share this video with your friends and family so we can start getting our cousins and them and folk, so we can try to begin to build wealth in our families again. If you're watching here on Facebook, share this video. Press the thumbs up like button. Press the heart. Okay, maybe you cool. Your life is good. You got your family, y'all strong together, but you know so many people in your family that don't have everything merging and cohesively together like that. You know a whole lot of people that are still struggling financially. Share this information with them. Have some conversations with your friends and your family about some of these topics, and let's dialogue together. But if you know that there's some value in this content that we've been sharing live, share this video with your friends and family and press the heart button. Let's get this information through the algorithm of Facebook and YouTube. Let's get this information, continue to spread this message so we can get back to the traditional values that worked for our people prior to 1965, prior to 1960, when we had strong families in spite of all the stuff. Look at it. We had hard times. Let me bring that back up. Yeah, there was a time when we had hard times, but it created strong people. It created resilient people. It created people that wanted to instill strong family values to their children so that they could be strong people in a world where it took character, and it took strong character to stand up for your family values. Let's get back to those times, because as much as you could say they were detrimental or whatever you might say about it, it worked. And there is a correlation between our money and how much wealth we're building and our lack of modesty that we are continuing to instill in our children and our young people. And it is being detrimental to them. And now many of our young millennials but what's this, Generation Z or whatever, many of them are starting to reject these crazy ideas because they're seeing how us and their parents and they've been seeing for the last 20 years or whatever of their life, how the outcomes we've been getting, and they're rejecting a lot of this stuff. And many of them are getting back to the things that we moved away from. And I'm proud when I see young people, young men in particular. I'm proud when I see some young men getting married. I'm proud when I see some young men putting their purpose first over pursuing young girls, and they still trying to figure out their purpose and figure out their path in life and establish themselves financially. I'm proud when I see that. I'm proud when I see young men valuing their time and valuing, their who they emotionally connect and attach themselves to. I'm proud when I see young men continue to go through life and not fathering children before they marry, and not fathering children and producing more and more broken homes. I'm proud when I see that. When I'm seeing young men rejecting this foolishness about being, this craziness about being a rolling stone and all of this other stuff, and spreading their seed indiscriminately all across the city and across the United States in different cities. I'm proud when I see young men stand up and say, hey, I value, who I am, and I value my seed and the legacy that I want to leave and produce. And I'm proud when I see young men stand up and take that stand in a world that's pushing against them, saying, no, have fun, enjoy yourself, go ahead, do this and do that. Proud when I see young men stand up and they understand that their resources and that their money is equated to how much modesty and how much self-control and discipline that they have. That they can delay gratification because they know that there's something better that they're trying to build and work toward in their future. And that's what we need to begin to reinstill back into our future generations. I'm out. I got to go. Share this video. Give me some thumbs up and some likes, and drop some comments below. I got to go.